Good evening and welcome, Patriots. Welcome to Law with Lucas, Wednesday night after a week's hiatus. I apologize for that, by the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, I just want to say welcome to everybody. Thank you. I'm going to let people jump on while I talk about some of the housekeeping stuff. Please like, share, love, care. I don't care. Whatever you have to do, show some love to the video. Get it shared out there for your friends. Get as many people watching it as we possibly can. I'll tell you a little bit here in a second about kind of what I've been doing the past couple weeks and why I'm not um, as prepared in terms of paperwork. Hi, Tina, as I normally would be. Rebecca. Um, but typically that's when I have some of my best ad lib dialogue, so monologue. So hopefully that'll ring true tonight. We will see. So we've got Pennsylvania, Bruce from Kansas. Where at, Bruce? We have Lori, Pedro, Minnie, Becky, Ann. Lots of folks already commenting. Virginia, Ann. God bless you all in Virginia. Good luck. Praying for your state, praying that you guys will make the right decisions. Hey, vote and make sure you take 10 people with you. How about that? Let's get that done in Virginia. Terry McAuliffe is a slime ball. Everybody should know that by now. Ken, Ann, Ruth, Jane, Oregon, love it. Kennesaw, Georgia, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Angie, hello. Brenda, Dawn, all kinds of folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the American Populist, Law with Lucas. So, hey, and Rumble, yes. Okay, so let's start the show with that, all right? I have an absolute hate, love relationship with Facebook. You know what I love about Facebook? It's got all my stuff for the past, I don't know, 15, 16 years, pictures and comments and, you know, notes from back in the day when notes were a big thing, all kinds of fun stuff. Other than that, Zuckerberg's got to go, right? So Rumble and has just recently partnered with Locals, which is kind of a social media website. We've got Donald Trump coming out with a media empire, all kinds of things happening. But in reality, at the end of the day, there's got to be competition in that segment of society and that sector of business so we can do our best to get rid of Facebook. Yes, Virginia, Tina, please, please, red wave in Virginia, send some shockwaves throughout the country. Let's go, Brandon. Hey, let's see, Roy, Eddie, Jacqueline. How we doing, everybody? So yeah, social media. Here I am on social media. So we use a website called Mrs. Producer. What is this website called that we use? StreamYard. And StreamYard allows to stream to multiple socials at once. I think right now mostly Facebook because YouTube permanently banned Primetime Patriots because we're so uh, critically red extremist, such a hate group. You know how that goes. But apparently we've violated the community standards one too many times. YouTube hates us. They blocked us for good. So bye-bye YouTube. But anyway, we use this platform, StreamYard, and it allows us to save our programming. We will then upload it to Rumble. Rumble's getting ready to do some really cool things with locals. Hopefully have more live options for us and, more to come there. So yes, please smash that love button. Share. We'll get this video out there because I think we're gonna talk about some really cool stuff. Before we do, let me tell you all, I apologize for not being here last week. I have a really good job. I love my job. I love the people I work with. But it's that time of year where we're making 2022 plans. Lots of P&L work, trying to make sure that the business is profitable in some really weird times. See, inflation, most of you probably know this, but for those of you who don't, inflation affects businesses just like it does households. We as a business, we have to buy stuff to make stuff to sell stuff. Well, the stuff we're buying to turn into goods that other people will buy is starting to cost more money. Well, what businesses do is what you would do is they pass that cost along down the line to the end user. Well, the problem is in contractual business, you're limited by how many times you can pass those cost increases along. Well, that's not normally a problem, except in this environment of inflation. We've seen raw material costs skyrocket through 2021, and it's really compressed the P&Ls of our business and many other businesses just like it, and probably your businesses out there. So what's interesting is you're kind of in that weird space where the businesses may not be making a lot of money per se, but if your business is diversified, then some arm of your overall corporate business is probably making some money while others might not be. But the long and short of it is it's taken a lot of planning and a lot of work, and I've had to do some traveling the past couple of weeks. So long story short, here we are back after a week's hiatus. And what I want to talk about tonight that I think is extremely important is where is this mandate going? Vaccine mandate. I don't care about saying the vaccine word. I know it drives some people nuts and some people worry that we'll get banned and whatever. Listen, you guys do what you got to do up there in the Zuckerverse. I could give a crap less. Can I say crap, Mrs. Producer? Is that all right? I get a thumbs up on that one.
I mean, I guess.
I think she was a little delayed. I promise you that was a thumbs up. Anyway, so here's the deal. We all know that the vaccine mandates have kind of first started with the areas of our lives that the federal government can control. Federal employees, the military, um, you know, groups that the federal government very clearly control. And then it's kind of moved out to contractors, people who contract with the federal government, stuff like that. And that's kind of the space we're in right now. Um, some objections initially were that it was an emergency use vaccine only. Now it's got FDA, or at least the retail branded version does. I'm not going to get into all that again tonight. What I'm going to tell you is what's coming is the 5 to 11-year olds in the United States are going to be granted emergency use authorized vaccine. Why is that a problem? Number one, it's not polio. It's not smallpox. It's not measles. It's not mumps. It's not rubella. It's not tetanus. It's not the kind of disease for kids 5 to 11 that those diseases are. So, the first place, if anybody tells you we've been mandating vaccines for kids for years, you can tell them to take a look here because it's easily distinguishable. While we have required vaccines in some circumstances where we've shown proven legitimate effectiveness over many decades to the point of eradicating a disease, this vaccine is nothing like that. We know that this vaccine will not eradicate COVID, period. Nobody's even arguing that it would. In fact, the initial argument for the vaccine was we got to get to herd immunity. As soon as 70, well, I think it was first it was 70, then it was 75, then it was 80. Maybe from time to time he might even slip in a 90. I don't know. It doesn't really matter because at this point, Fauci himself has said numerous different numbers of what herd immunity would look like in terms of vaccination. Well, here we are as a country at 80% vaccinated. We still don't have herd immunity. In the remaining 20%, you have to assume some of those have natural immunity, and we know that the science has shown that natural immunity is superior to the vaccine immunity. So all of that being said, yes, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about here in just a second. Thank you so much for that. All of that being said, if somebody comes to you and says the 5 reasons that they think 5 to 10-year-olds should be forced to get the jab to go to school, hopefully you're armed with enough information that you can combat them right away with myriad facts. All right. If not, keep watching the show because we'll have plenty of them to talk about. But I think that's coming. I think that the vaccine mandate for school age children to be able to go to school is coming. Um, I don't think that the left is interested in giving up on push for mandatory vaccination anytime soon to their own demise. I mean, all we have to do is outlast them to next November, next January, and we'll be, well, we will be able to turn back a lot of the stuff that they've tried to do. But even if we can't turn it all back, we're going to give the GOP a mandate once again, just like we did in 2016, to make change, to put us back on the right track. 2016, they blew it. They said President Trump campaigned on repealing Obamacare, and Paul Ryan and the rest of the P rhinos fought against him and resisted, and ultimately it didn't happen. Yes, I am wearing Kaylee's hat. That has to be a comment from my producer. Mrs. Producer, was that your comment? That's what I thought.
I would never do such a thing ever.
So, so here's the deal. The GOP is going to have to do something this time. They're going to get a mandate. They're probably going to see. I saw polling showing as many as 85 different battleground um, districts are running in the GOP favor right now. Now it's early. It's hard to say. We still have people going to retire, people that are going to drop out of races, and people that are going to surprise people. I mean, there's a lot of things that'll happen, but I think it's fairly safe to say that GOP is going to win the House back, and we're going to be able to retire Nancy Pelosi. But if we anticipate ever keeping the in for more than 2 years, they're going to have to do something to slow all this madness. So withstand, do everything you can to stand against this mandatory vaccination as much as you possibly can, within reason, within the law. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do. Let me give you an example. I have a friend. He's a friend that you would know if I gave him your name, if I gave you his name. Good friend of mine who has applied for a religious exemption in his work, because his work has a mandatory vaccine requirement. He's applied for a religious exemption. We're awaiting the results, but I kind of collaborated a little bit with him to kind of give him some ideas. One of the main things is don't mix your exemptions. A religious exemption is very simple. You have a First Amendment right to the free exercise of your religion. The Supreme Court has discussed sincere belief, deeply held religious beliefs. There's a lot of buzzwords, but the reality is it needs to be real. It's not that hard to claim a religious exemption. For example, with Christianity, your body is your temple. Um, you know, there's faith in Jesus and in God as your healer. There's also an idea that I personally believe in, that if you're going to do something to your body or affect your body in some way, a lot of people pray about it first, right? They try to pray and they get some peace. And if they don't have peace about what they're going to do, they don't do it. And that applies to different areas of our lives. That should definitely apply to the mandate. So, long story short is he applied for a religious exemption. We're going to find out if he gets it, but do things like that. We're going to have that with our kids in schools. If that happens, there's going to be health exemptions, religious exemptions, things that need to be exhausted. Our system is set up to exhaust numerous opportunities to be heard before it's time to take drastic measures. So, best advice: understand what your rights are, understand how to fight for them in reasonable legal ways. When it comes time to put that behind us and do something different, everybody will know. There won't be a question. So I get a lot of people, messaging me and saying things like, after January 6th, when are we going to know that it's time? I mean, if Trump blasted the bugle, we would all know it's time. It's time to stand up, whatever. That's not going to happen. That's not the society that we've signed up for in the social compact. We've made an agreement to be governed. We've also made an agreement that the power that the governed folks will wield comes from the people. When that's broken, then it's time to do something. And I don't see that yet. I would have to see is something like mandatory vaccination for our kids, no exemptions, and it doesn't matter if they're going to school or not. Because we can take our kids out of school, we can homeschool our kids. If they tell us, you know what, I don't care if you homeschool your kids, we're going to be at your house next Tuesday and we're going to vaccinate your kid whether you like it or not, or we're going to take your kid away from you, then we've got a problem. So we're not there yet. If we get there, I'll let you know. Dan Bongino, good old Dan. I heard on his show a couple days ago, maybe it was late last week, that he fully intended to stand against Cumulus Broadcasting's requirement for all of its employees to get the vaccine. Dan, of course, is vaccinated, as many of us are, for various reasons. That's not the point. The point isn't whether or not you'll get the vaccine. The point, the point is, it should never be mandatory. Dan is standing for his own rights to not be forcibly vaccinated. He's standing for bodily autonomy. He's standing for all the people in his company that have either been fired or quit or forced to resign because they wouldn't take the jab, and he's standing up against it. And I fully believe he intends to stand as far as it has to go. I really. And in all of this, we learn things. We learn about contracts. We learn about who it is that we get into business with. Dan's learning a lot about the alternative economy. He's creating means to get around the nonsense, because the nonsense isn't going to stop coming. That's really what this show is about tonight. Hopefully, any of you who are still on the fence can see that the madness from the left is never going to stop. As soon as progressives found success clear back at the turn of the 20th century, they were never going to stop pushing forward for their agenda. Their agenda is overpowerful, strong central government. Central government whose powers are broad enough to change and adjust to whatever they want to change and adjust it to. Period. It's almost a form of pure democracy. Mark Levin would call it, American Marxism. It's a very apt, as Mark Levin usually is, a very, very apt explanation because that's exactly what it is. And it's real. It's not going to stop, and we're not going to beat it back with a bunch of McCarthyism tactics where we put up this dog and pony show where we try to run people through the mud. How we're going to win is exactly what you all are doing right now. You are speaking, you are educating yourselves. That's the number one most important thing. You're out there talking to your friends and family, you're voting, you're sharing videos, you are sifting through the nonsense to get to reality, because reality is important. As I've said numerous times, the only difference between liberty and tyranny is you. This country is unique because it's the first, and really even today, the only country that's founded on a founding document that guarantees the power resides with the people. We have ways to change and affect our government all the time. We have to use those. We have to understand them and we have to use them. I talked to a couple of friends of mine today about the difference between conservatives and leftists, Marxists, liberals, whatever you want to call them. One of the best examples I've ever heard is if you get a group of 5 people like me and Kaylee and Blake and many of you in a room together and say, give me 5 examples of a major policy element that you've changed your mind on in the past 10 years as you learn more about it. We may give you more than 5. I can give you medical marijuana, capital punishment, numerous different things that I've changed my own mind on over the years. And so can every other conservative I know. You know who can't? Hardcore leftists. If you subscribe to the Church of Liberalism and you're a hardcore leftist, you're not going to sit there and say that there's any ideas that are conservative that you agree with, because it's not about ideas. It's never been about ideas for a true liberal. It's almost like, and I don't mean any offense, but I want to give you a parallel that you can kind of understand easily. Sort of like denominational religion, and I mean really liturgical, every day is the same kind of religion. You got a group of people over here that are truly seeking God within that liturgical system, that religion. You have a group of people over here who are just doing it socially. They just want to be there because everybody else is there and it's the town thing to do, right? And then you have a group of people who are pretending. Okay? That's what liberalism is. You have the same kind of dynamic, but it's very faith-based. Somebody just put up there that their program, that's exactly what it is. It's a faith in government as the supreme being, as the supreme sovereign. And it's extremely dangerous, but they're never going to stop. We have to stop them. How do we do that? You learn, you grow, you do all the things that you're doing right now. You continue to build your knowledge base so that when somebody comes at you and says, like I had a friend of mine text me tonight, he's authorization of the Department of Health. And I said, oh, he's talking about Richard getting 4-star admiral or whatever it was. Ridiculous, right? Everybody on here ought to know that whole dog and pony show was ridiculous. It's an effort to say, hey, transgender community, we support you. We are 100% on top of our game, because they got a black eye when Obama and Biden both opposed gay marriage when Obama ran in 2008. They got a big time black eye when that happened, and they intend to shore up that voting block come hell or high water. And that's what they're going to do. And that's what that was all about. But learning about those things, understanding what those things mean, understanding what administrative law is, how you have to exhaust administrative remedies before you can just jump right into federal court and say they're violating my First Amendment right. Okay, well, I can tell you from first thing the judge is going to say is, what was your remedy? If your remedy was an administrative hearing that you could have very well won, or writing a letter for an exemption that you could have gotten and you didn't do it, the first thing the federal judge is going to say is, get out of my court. I don't even want to hear you until this case is ripe for me to hear it. But see, you can't learn those things if you're not actively seeking to learn more about your government, civics, government, all those things. So when people ask me, what do I need to do? Well, you need to arm yourself, because one of the things that the left is scared of more than anything in the world, and ask Bill Maher, he'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about, the fact that we are all very heavily armed. They're not going to attack 100 million people with jets and nuclear bombs, because there won't be any country left if they do that. So the reality is, if they ever intend to take our guns away, they're going to have to go door to door with the law enforcement arm. And it's not going to be the law enforcement arm as you know it today, because most of the people involved in law enforcement today and the military today would never do that. They would never allow it to happen. So arm yourself. Then arm yourself with knowledge. And then I would say, and this is definitely first in my book, but arm yourself with some faith. Understand that you serve something a lot bigger than a government. If that's how you want to be, if you want to serve the government more than your fellow man, more than your creator, go ahead. There's a whole other side of the aisle waiting for you with open arms. They'll take you as a voter any day. They'll probably make you vote 3 or 4 times, but it is what it is. So the coming weeks, let me scroll down here and just make sure I haven't missed any really good questions. Kaylee, if you see any really good ones, bring them up here, because I want to talk about them. But in the coming weeks, what I'm going to start doing, you got some?
Did you want me to share the study that you wanted me to pull up?
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you so much. That's why we have producers, ladies and
You're welcome.
gentlemen, right there. There it is. Oh, and non-binaries and anybody else that might be watching. Mandates. Do masks work? If they do, it's not really a mandate anymore. It's kind of just the way of life, right? It's got to be there forever. Because if they really work, why the heck would we ever stop using them? The study that's on your screen right now is the foremost authority on mask effectiveness at the moment. It's a very, very detailed experiment that used state of the art experimental techniques to gain knowledge and gain information, replicable, peer-reviewed information about how masks work in distributing, changing the direction of, or stopping aerosol dispersion of COVID-19. Okay. There's a link. You can find it. Search the link is posted in the comments. You can search for the physics of fluids, mask study, whatever. But let me save you the time. Masks are effective at changing the direction of COVID-19. Period. They don't stop it. They don't prevent indoor area. They won't stop you from receiving it from an indoor area. In fact, within 3 minutes of being inside a room the size that I'm in right now, if there's anybody in here with talking at all, I'm going to have it mask or no mask. Period. The most important thing you can do to prevent indoor spread of COVID is ventilation. And the article tells you exactly how much cubic feet of air movement has to happen in so much period of time. And it gives you all that information. But they make it very clear that mask effectiveness is nil over a certain period of time. In a very short period of time, it can have as much as 60% effectiveness, but kids wearing them at schools, completely useless. 100%. That's why Facebook does not fact check that article. You can post it on Facebook. They don't fact check it because they know it's exactly legitimate. What they try to do is ignore it. They limit its reach. They ignore it. The media has ignored it. Everybody's ignoring it because they know they can't challenge it. It is authoritative. And if you read it, it tells you. Well, they can't hide that forever. I mean, at some point, we're going to have the House back. We're going to be doing hearings. We're going to do hearings on mask effectiveness, and we're going to make that point very, very clear. Mrs. Producer, thanks for joining us. What else you got?
Hi. So I just want to make sure that we highlight this comment by, I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up because this is actually something that we were discussing while you were driving today. And I would like for you to kind of go over this just a little bit because these are similar feelings that I was having and that we were talking about. So I think that it'd be really good to address this. Love y'all.
Woo. Okay, first of all, Carmel, Indiana. Oh man, you want to talk about woke? It's a beautiful area, lots of money, extremely woke. So we'll leave that at that. I love Indiana. Indiana's a great state. Carmel, Indiana is think uh trying to think of areas people really know well. Well, that's not important. Let's not dig into Carmel, Indiana. Here's the point. Tax dollars being spent in public schools to teach critical race theory, next step, yada yada, blah blah blah. My kid came home the other day talking about the importance of wearing masks and getting vaccinated and yada yada yada. It's out there. It's been out there for a long time. They took prayer and any kind of teaching of religion, even historical teaching of religion, out of schools a long time ago. They've been moving, further and further toward this, for lack of a better word, wokeism for many, many, many decades, probably 4 decades. The reality is there's not going to be much we can do to change that in the system as it exists today. The number one thing we can do and we can support to change the system as it exists today is school choice. What is school choice? School choice is the idea that if Kaylee and Lucas decide not to send their kids to school, to public school in their area, they would be given some kind of tax voucher, rebate, actual cash voucher of some kind to apply toward some kind of private school tuition. So if your private school in your area costs $800 a month or $1,000 a month per kid, you might get a $2,500 voucher from the federal government or from the states, or whoever it is that enacts the school choice provisions, and you could take that money and apply it toward that tuition. The idea is, why would you have to pay property taxes or income taxes or any tax in your state that goes to paying for public education that either your kids aren't using or you don't support what they're teaching, or they're not responsive to you, or whatever, right? it's a it's a very good goal to get to school choice. We have to push for it at the federal level. We have to make it a permanent plank in the GOP platform and really push it as one of our main objectives, because it's not so much of a wedge issue. There's a lot of people in minority areas who have seen some of the importance of charter schools, magnet schools, some of the other types of schools that exist out there, and they know that school choice would help them in their communities do better for their children. There's a lot of support for it. It's just breaking through the National Education Association very difficult. So it's going to take a lot more work. In the meantime, there are individuals running. This is the odd numbered years right after a presidential election are very common for local elections, city councils, mayors, some state elections, sometimes governor. I think governor of Pennsylvania is actually one of them right now. But school boards are being elected this November all across the country, right in the middle of CRT and um, you know, all kinds of sexual teaching that we don't want our kids to see, and all this stuff that's going. There's school board elections happening, so we need people who will stand up against vaccine mandates, against mask mandates, stand up for traditional teaching, stand against Common Core math, stand against CRT. We need those people running for school boards. Right now, we have people in the district that I currently live in that are making it very, very clear that those people should be fought against tooth and nail. We have literally 3 or 4 different people. So there's different ways that they do school board elections. Sometimes there's certain seats for certain districts, or what is more often the case, there's 4 or 5 seats and they're all elected from within the district. If you live in the district, you vote for all of them, and sometimes they do ranked choice. They take the top 4. Sometimes they do runoffs. They do different things. You need to understand your election in your district, but you got to figure out who it is that's going to stand for what you believe in. And if there's not anybody, then it needs to be you. If you believe that strongly in preventing your kids from being subjected to that kind of stuff, you got to run. If there's nobody else that believes the way you believe, you got to step up. I mean, it's that time. Liberal racists don't support it. It'd be great for poor kids in bad schools. Absolutely. The money would follow the kid. I love it. You're exactly right. Exactly right. And that's why there's so many people particularly in urban districts that are traditionally poorer with poorer performance. They support it. Why? Because they know that it's gonna guarantee money can be funneled to the right places for these kids to get an education. I mean, why is it that we can put out a movie like Finding Forrester and say this kid was brilliant? He was floundering in an urban school that was underperforming for him, and he was underperforming. We were going to lose him to God knows what, and he was plucked out of that mire, sent to a private school to play basketball where he could also get a fantastic education, and it changed his life. Why is that that's so celebrated from the left, but school choice is frowned on? Because they're racist. We know the answer. We know that it's worse than the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's the outright racism of low expectations. And it's not just low expectations, they design it to keep particularly minorities as uneducated and ignorant to what's going on as they possibly can, because that's how they keep their power structure. That's how they keep their voting blocks intact, which is what I kind of started the show with, right? People who sit around and actually critically think and challenge their own assumptions and challenge their own beliefs constantly are dangerous to the Democrat Party. Very dangerous, because you can't believe things like inflation is good for society and critical race theory. We need active racism to cure past racism. You can't believe those things if you critically think, right? So to be a Democrat today, to be a modern liberal, to be a leftist, to be an American Marxist, you have to have a completely different worldview that doesn't jibe with what any of the rest of regular Americans think on a day-to-day basis. And you know that. So what do you have to do? You have to ensure that they don't know Eve. How do you do that? You keep people ignorant. Is that clear enough, Mrs. Producer? Oh, I wish I
I
could be
mean,
nicer
I
than
understood it, so
for a
it's
day.
pretty clear.
Good enough. All right, so I'm going to wrap up. I'll just really look really fast, make sure there's nothing else. Yes, dumbing down of America. You got it, Ken. No doubt about it. Listen, there may be some questions left over. I'll take note. I'm going to wrap it up. I want to tell you a couple quick things first. Number one, I'll be back next Wednesday, regular time, 8 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Eastern. Number two, I'm going to start doing some more graphics and things, pulling some things up that you can see. I can't imagine anybody likes to hear me talk for 30 straight minutes. So I'm going to try to bring up maybe some videos. Really want to have some guests come on, particularly liberals. I love to hear their perspective. And I have a friend that I work with. I spent an hour and a half on the phone with him the other day, and we talked about a lot of this stuff. And he comes around on the phone. I hear it in his voice. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. I guess I really do agree more with your brand of American populism more than I do with the Democrat Party." Um, but it's fleeting. It's like the parable of the four soils in the Bible. Uh, we may throw that seed down on top of these folks, and the left and the media comes along and snatches it right away before it can take root. So we got to keep doing it. Keep doing it. Don't stop. Don't let the media distract you. Um, don't let them beat you up to the point where you won't stand against their nonsense. We will win because we won't quit. And we stand on a rock that they will never have. My kid the other day asked me, we're talking about the flag. We were talking, we were watching Pearl Harbor, and he was seeing, the emotion behind what was happening. And he said, what would make somebody want to do all of that? And he was talking about the Americans fighting back against the Japanese. And I said, something you need to understand is that there's no stronger principle in the world to fight for than freedom. At the end of the day, the arc of liberty may bend slowly, but at the end of the day, we will never give up on the ideal of freedom. And this country is the ideal of freedom. It's strong. There's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. To be a volunteer, you have to be free. So I'm going to leave you all with that. I'm going to be back next week. We're going to talk. There's plenty going on. This next week has a lot of things happening in politics. Please don't forget to join Blake. Tough Takes with Blake every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Central. Please join Blake. Gosh, he's fun to listen to. And Kaylee, I don't know if you have your graphic ready, Kaylee, but I am going to push you to get back, start doing your regular shows because people love to hear you. I love to hear you. So encourage Kaylee too. There he is, Mr. Tinfoil Hat. All right. Love you all. Thank you so much. Find this video, Rumble, share it out there. Tell your friends and family to watch it. If you have any questions, leave them for us in the comments. Comment on Rumble. Comment on our Facebook pages. One way or the other, I'll try to answer your questions. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Take care.